Hey, these aren't the actual books that I'm going to be talking about today. I just have them as digital copies, and these are the only physical copies of books I have. So today I want to talk about my October TBR. So I'm kind of sticking with the goal of 4 books a month that I kind of want to read. I usually read books by vibes, not by goals. So picking 4 books, I think one a week that I can kind of make a goal of reading will be really good for me. And the 4 books that I picked out are ones that I've seen on Book Talk, but I've also seen in bookstores and thought were kind of interesting and I wanted to check out. So the first book that I want to talk about is Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. So I've seen this one recommended a lot on Book Talk as a book that kind of shares. So I've seen this book talked about on Book Talk, and it's actually going to be adapted into a Hulu miniseries, which is very fun and interesting. So hopefully I'll have read it in time for the show, and I can be excited for that when that happens. But basically, it is kind of a mystery thriller kind of story, and I feel like as it is going to be October, that'll be a fun thing to read. And I don't think I have read many things that kind of focus or take place in Mexico and kind of tell a storyline from that perspective. So that is something I'm looking forward to. The next book that I want to read is Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. So I saw this book in a bookstore here, and I saw it in a bookstore, and the title and the imagery of the cover of the book just kind of caught my eye. And they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I think this book is very good at kind of drawing you in. It's very provocative, and I read the first page or two in a bookstore and I was like, oh, I have to see what this is about. So this book kind of covers motherhood and contemporary womanhood, and it's supposed to be kind of have like magical realism in it, and it's supposed to be funny but also kind of subversive. So I'm interested to see how this book goes, and I'm very excited for that. I think I might try and read that one first for my October reading list. And then the next book I want to read, book number 3, is The Woman of Troy by Pat Barker. So I feel like a lot of books in the past couple of years have kind of re-highlighted and brought a re-interest into classical history. So adaptations of the Odyssey and the Iliad are being retold, and Madeline Miller has done a great job of that with her books The Song of Achilles and Circe. And I loved both of those books, and I've always enjoyed Greek history and mythology. So this book, The Woman of Troy, talks about Helen, Cassandra, Amina, Herculba, Briseis, and kind of retells the story, but we get it from the woman's perspective. So I really want to see how she does that telling and how it kind of contradicts how it would have been told from a man's perspective. And then the last book that I want to read in October on my TBR is Under the Wave at Waimea by Paul Theroux. So I kind of wanted to read this book because I have been away from home, away from Hawaii for a couple months now, and I kind of miss it. And I saw this on a shelf and I'm like, oh wow, Waimea, Hawaii. This will be kind of a nice way to come back, like connect back with home. And I think we should always read books that remind us and tell the stories of where we're from, because we get to kind of hear our own cultural connections, but we get to see how someone else, so like how Paul Theroux would talk about Hawaii through his characters, would be different than how I myself would talk about Hawaii and my own experience. So his book, Thoreau's book, talks about privilege, mortality, and kind of the people we remember in history versus the people we don't. And I'm really excited to read this. I haven't really read a book that connects to literature about Hawaii since I was an undergraduate. And I've always really liked literature of Hawaii, and I've always loved the connections. So I'm excited to see how this book goes. So that's my October TBR. I'm keeping my goal very low, I think. A lot of the reading I do happen to do is usually by vibes. So usually if I see a book, I read it and move on. And by setting this goal is kind of in creating a TBR for each month is kind of a way to keep me diversified in my readings and a way to explore different genres and storylines. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a nice week.